views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Looking for something, a new way, a new understanding, a connection, some comfort. You've got questions, and Light on Living puts the spotlight on all the answers so you can shine. Lift and lighten the load of life's challenges and learn simple and easy ways to live a healthy, happy life. You'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you. You're invited to hear new, see different, and feel more as Lisa shines the light on living.
Welcome, everyone, to Light on Living. I'm Light Coach Lisa, holistic nutritionist and life coach, helping to lighten the load of life's challenges. Today, I'm going to really be enjoying today's show, more for me, a little bit of a selfish reason, but I'm really okay with that. As we all grow and unfold and reveal all this stuff that's inside of us, and we experience life and new things come our way, we have this we'll hope to have a flexibility to ourselves that we can look at new viewpoints and see if that works for us and kind of align or say, no, you know what, that isn't for me. And I want to start off with just a few quotes because today is truly going to be story time show. I've got a few stories that I'm going to be reading from it and sharing, but a really neat quote that I just found, it was by Mark Twain, and he said, "A man cannot be comfortable without his own approval." And I really aligned with that one because today we are talking about how to self-sabotage less. And it's hard when we have to sit back and look at where we are sabotaging ourselves because that means we have to take responsibility. And it's so easy to look and point the finger at others or circumstances even, like doesn't even have to be another person that we're blaming or thinking has been the person who's influenced that choice or why our lives are a certain way. But in that quote itself, a man cannot be comfortable without his own approval. And I think of a little bit of sadness in there too, because when we aren't comfortable with ourselves and therefore we don't approve of ourselves, we become so disconnected to our heart center and our choices become, not to our highest self, and they don't support us. Another quote I want to share just at the beginning here is, you cannot create a more loving reality from self-hate. You cannot will yourself into new reality without pushing the unwanted parts aside. And the last few shows, we've really had a lot of people, our guests have been on to help us feel safe enough, feel comfortable enough to look at those parts that are, when we had Lloyd on and he was talking about how to love the parts that we think aren't lovable. And last week, wow, I had a new paradigm shift, which was really fun as we got to hear from David Essel about how action is, plays a bigger role than even, the visualization and everything. That was, I want to admit to everybody listening, that was a tough one at first for me to hear because I really, really love the belief of, measure a bazillion times and then cut, or play, like a lot of the things that we experience in life come from a lot of planning. An impromptu story to share. It was all of my life, I wanted to go to Paris. Like it was years and years and years, my life, decades. And I planned that trip so well. I had so much time that I knew the street names. I knew the roads. I knew what they looked like. I know where the buildings were and what bus line I would take and all these things. And I had planned it out so intensely and I visualized it. And then I got to take action and I did get to go. I took myself to Paris and off I went and experienced it. And it didn't mean that what I had envisioned or what I visualized or any affirmations that I said I could do this, it didn't mean that is what happened when I got there. But it certainly motivated me enough and created the desire and the will and also the confidence because it really it was really a tough decision just to pick up and go by myself then. So I think there's been so many wonderful, beautiful things showing up in my life that I feel very honored to be able to share with everybody listening to the show. And I do appreciate everybody coming and learning how to, like we say at the very beginning, how to lighten the load of life's challenges. Because every day a new challenge can show up, or the same one over and over. And that's where I want to talk about the self-sabotaging. So a couple of years ago, I did I call it a workshop, but really it was done over into a teleseminar type style thing. And I was very excited to do this. And it was a rather interesting time. My mom was, I think she had just passed, or she was passing. And, you know, we always get very stressed when we're having a difficult challenge in our lives. And here I was going to do this seminar about the ego. Online, over the phone, very excited, very nervous at the same time. And because of the stress with my mom and everything, I had lost my voice. Like, I literally couldn't talk at all. And here I was going to go, there was no video, no support or anything. I was like, I have to pull this off. How am I going to do this? And when I created that, it was funny because I literally came across my notes from that call. And it's always perfect timing. I do believe in divine timing and helpful things showing up for you when you do, because it can all get into a rut of self-sabotage. And a lot of stuff has been showing up in my life lately that says, oh, remember that? Or did you finish that? Did you do this yet? Oh, there's more on the list there. So as we go through today, I want to share some techniques that have helped me tremendously over the time, but also now that I've been able to look back at something that's now almost 4 years old, I can see where beautiful experiences have showed up in my life, where I've been able to grow, and people who have showed up in my life, such as the lovely, beautiful guests that do come onto the show and share with us what they've learned. And in saying that, like, everybody listening knows I love tapping and I love Ho'oponopono. Those are my two go-to tools, but I do have a few little extra ones here. And before I go into what I want to do is I'm going to be sharing after the commercial break. I'm going to read a story. I'm going to read a story. And the story is actually one of the chapters that I've written in an anthology book. I didn't even know what the word anthology meant, actually, when I knew I had them, I owned them, but I didn't exactly know what they were. And really, an anthology is when many authors come together and they share a chapter or a story or two, and they create a book that has a theme to it. Now, this book, of course, is called Soulful Stories of Love and Empowerment. And I'm in the empowerment section, which was really quite the honor to be asked to even write. And I didn't even know what the heck I was going to write about first, because you look at your whole life and you think, well, goodness, there's many challenges and many things. And we go through stages in our lives where one tool or technique or theme seems to be more apparent than others. And I'm going to be reading that chapter when we return. But the main things about it really was when you look back and you wonder, why am I here? Not why am I here on the, like, who am I, where am I here, but why am I exactly where I am? Why am I in this place? Why are the people in my life who are in my life? Why am I doing the career that I'm doing? Why am I experiencing pain or illness or health that I am? All these things. And the ego really does come up. And when I talk about ego, I'm not talking about somebody with a big ego, like that comment that you would hear about somebody who's all into themselves and vanity and all that stuff. Really what I'm talking about is the self-esteem part of ego and the identity that we connect with and we align in who we believe we are and who we present to the world. And I kind of was breaking down self-esteem. Like, okay, what is this self-esteem business? And how do we have great self-esteem, and what insults our self-esteem? What injures us that we feel that we don't have such great self-esteem, and really how to work with that? When I was looking at self-esteem, I broke it into a couple words. I love words. They hold so much vibration and power to them. Self-esteem came up in a few things. And first of all, I thought a very obvious one, I think, would be confidence. And a lot of people think, I just don't have the confidence to do that. And maybe that's why they're not taking action. Really want to break the word confidence down, because especially I'm hearing David Essel last week and talking about taking action. There's a lot of things that do come into play of why we do take action and why we don't take action. And confidence is something I definitely can pinpoint where I have it, really strong confidence, and I can tell where I don't have the confidence, and I know what I do when I don't have the confidence. I know where I sabotage these things. And a good thing about confidence is having a successful track record. Now, in order to have a successful track record, we actually have to do things to have the success in there. And I was thinking about, well, how do I get to that point? Like, how do I know what my ability, if my self-esteem is going to be really high, then I'm going to be confident and I'm going to recognize my abilities. And the ability really is, again, back to taking action. It's how capable am I doing this? And what comes to there is it requires me to have a willingness to try. Again, where does that come from? I really want to go backwards on this because I want to get it right down to that little seed. Where is it coming from? And if I don't have the confidence and I can't prove my ability, where am I limiting myself? Where am I not believing that my life is worthy enough? Why would I, if I have low self-esteem, why am I walking through this world thinking that I'm not worthy and that I don't have this value? When I was growing up in school, I loved math. I loved numbers and words. And I always remember I think they told us it was a crocodile, the greater than or less than. And it was like a big mouth of a crocodile. And if the crocodile's mouth was open, like the little symbol, then that it was greater than. And I always think, well, in order to decide the value, the worth of something, we were taught in math that it was to comparing something to another. And in that comparison, I thought, well, where is the safest place to compare to? Because this requires judgment. And it requires judgment of other people, and it requires of myself. And it requires judgment on action that I take and that others take. And that all came down to respect. And I thought about self-esteem and respect and how that includes pride, honor, and dignity. And the self-esteem part of respect and having that pride and honor and dignity really comes down to that self-love. And the chapter I'm going to be sharing with you when we come back, it's called The Blind Spot in the Bathroom Mirror. And it's going to be a story about sabotage and blind spots. So when we come back, we're going to find out exactly that story.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Welcome back to The Cat Show. Up next, we have Nico. Nico is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right. A group known especially for their sunspot sleeping, ball chasing, leg rubbing, and of course, companionship. Just look how she struts.
It's like she owns the place.
And see how she curls up and cuddles her person.
The pitch on her purring is simply perfect.
Nice one.
Fantastic cat. But really the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Nico is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Hello, we're back. And I just have to say, just that commercial about a shelter pet, you know what they say at the very end, the best way to get to know one is to meet one. And I thought that was actually perfect because here we are looking at respect and how we self-sabotage. And really, this is the important part. We have to meet ourselves. We have to get to know ourselves, and therefore we have to meet ourselves, which is kind of, I thought that was a perfect little commercial before this. Before we went into commercial, I shared that I was going to read a story from the book, Soulful Stories of Love and Empowerment. And the reason why I'm just so excited to share this story, it's a personal one for me, which is great. And it really shares some lessons in there. And then we're going to go into some techniques of really how to, when you're really at your lowest point, you're just wondering, why the heck do I keep doing this to myself? And how to love yourself through it, because we talk a lot about that. Oh, just love yourself, forgive yourself. Well, how the heck do you forgive yourself, or how do you forgive others? Because I do have a very sneaky, awesome tip on this one. And even I was surprised when it came across and thought, wow, that's a good one. I got to share that one. So I'm going to share the story. I'm going to be reading it. And it's called The Blind Spot in the Bathroom Mirror. Here we go. Ooh, this was going to be bad. I already felt awful, embarrassed, kind of scared actually, but I couldn't even imagine how Mom and Dad were going to react or what they would do to me. I couldn't imagine any worse punishment than how badly I already felt. I was a little girl. I had friends, a loving family, and I did well in school, but something made me lie to my best friend. I lied to feel that I was better than the other kids. I lied so that she would like me more than them. Looking back now, I can't even imagine how ego snuck in so quietly and quickly, but it did, and I fell victim to it. What I thought was a harmless lie caused a domino effect, eventually leading my best friend to breaking her arm. I truly felt awful and was already deeply sorry, but I was also a kid who lied, and there would be a punishment. Mom often yelled at us girls. My sister and I were two regular siblings, playfully poking at one another and testing each other's boundaries. Being separated for a timeout, being sent to our rooms, and the occasional grounding wasn't uncommon, but all disciplinary action made sense to me, and probably secretly, I appreciated Mom stepping in to save me from our fights escalating. And I have to insert here. My sister actually punched me so hard one time she chipped my tooth, and I remember thinking, oh, I don't ever want to fight with her ever again. But no matter what thought, I always felt loved, even when she did hit me. Back to my lie and the serious outcome. I remember feeling so awful that I wanted to be gone from the planet, just vanish. I was terrified to face all the people and mostly ashamed to face my best friend. The punishment was a shocker. It will sound simple, but at first, and I'll tell you, it was the hardest and most life-changing punishment I ever went through. It became the foundation of how I was able to love myself deeply for the rest of my life. Before I tell you what I endured, what I learned, and what I overcame, I want to ask you, how do you spend time with yourself? How do you talk to yourself? How do you listen and hear what you think and want? What tone, what position do you take? I spoke of ego sneaking in at such an early age, and I'm still shocked as my adult woman self thinks about this. I like to think that I knew myself as a child and that I trusted and loved and thought highly of myself. But when I lied to make myself look better than the other kids, there was obviously a judgment I made about who I was. I wondered when that started. I wondered why I did it, and I wonder if we all do it, and I wonder mostly how we all help each other to get to know our true selves and then treat self with kindness, love, and respect. My mom knew how. This was my punishment. The best punishment my parents ever gave me was a lesson on how to see what was in the blind spot of my own bathroom mirror. A blind spot is defined as an area where the view is obstructed, or where something is in the way, or where something is preventing or hindering a full view, or deliberately making it difficult to see. I want to interject here. That definition is so powerful and so important to understand because to sabotage also means to deliberately destroy, obstruct, or impair. So my mom first sat down with me on the edge of my bed, face to face, and looked me in the eye. Allow me to share that when you feel so ashamed of something you did, wow, that is uncomfortable. All I wanted to do was hide my face, feel loved and accepted, and erase everything. I'm laughing now, but the weirdest thing was that my mom was not yelling. That confused me even more. Mom went beyond asking me why I lied, because she knew not to stop at my confession, that I wanted to look better than the other kids. She made me go deeper and asked why I wanted to look better than the other kids. Smart, Mom. I said I was scared that if the other kids were better than me, then my best friend would leave me and not be my friend. Mom explored this further and asked me if that did happen. Did I not think I would make other friends? Of course, I said. As a little girl, I replied, but I didn't want other friends. I wanted her as my best friend. My mom explored further and deeper and didn't leave either side of the coin unchecked. She questioned me from how I felt about the world, what I thought people felt, and how I felt about myself, giving me many scenarios to look at, think about, and reply to. Once this line of questioning was done, she told me to stand up. I was hoping this was a big hug and all is well part. It was not. She told me to follow her. We left my room and crossed the hall to the bathroom, where there was a full-length mirror on the door. She told me and said I was to sit or stand in front of the mirror and have a conversation with myself, looking into my own eyes and at all my body parts. I was to understand, forgive, encourage, and love myself, all while looking in the mirror. There were tears streaming down my mom's cheeks as she directed me to do this. She said that it hurt her to know that her little girl she loved with all of her heart didn't love herself as much. The pain I saw, the compassion I felt for my mom as she exposed her wounds, somehow taught me right then and there what it felt like to be hurtful to oneself. She was in a way a mirror, and in the reflection, I saw my own value and my worth. If I wasn't valuable and if I wasn't worthy, this woman, my mother, would not have such pain. I stood there in front of that mirror, shifting and fidgeting for a bit. Honestly, I was for sure thinking that my mom was around the corner spying on me to make sure I was following through. But something happened. I sat down. I sat still. I looked in the mirror and I looked through myself to what I now call the blind spot in my bathroom mirror. I started talking to all the parts of me that had been hurt, sad, judgmental, angry, and even scared. I offered them loving words as I would to a best friend, and it felt nice. I didn't feel lonely at all. I almost started feeling guilty for how great I felt and full of joy after doing something so awful. It was in that moment that I felt what forgiveness really was. My mom taught me how to know myself, how to forgive myself, and love myself in my perfect imperfections. When I came to my mom after and asked if I could come up for dinner, she said yes. But before that, there was one last part of the punishment/lesson. That was to phone my best friend and apologize to both her and her parents. Mom saw my face drop and shift with terror. She said, "Lisa, there's no need for fear. Courage comes to you in difficult times when your strength is built on self-love and self-acceptance. You can now do anything." Ugh, that was a toughie. Many of us stand in the front of our own bathroom mirrors, and the blind spots can be blocked by different things for different people. For some, it's a complete avoidance as they ignore and numb all of their pain and almost cower away from the beauty they deny. Others' blind spots are actually the love, the value, and the worth that they deliberately block and deny themselves if they allow the remaining parts of the mirror to lie to them and only show disrespect and judgment. Most often, the bathroom mirror hears, turn on the page, hears you again. You're getting old. You are old. You're ugly. You're better. Fix that. Cover that. Where did that come from? And the saddest, God, I look terrible. But it's not just the mirror that hears that. It's you. It's your spirit, your soul, your heart, and your brain that hears this as well. You feel this and you start to become this. I was one lucky kid to have my mom make me check my blind spot. My ego still creeps in, and when I hear and I know it's getting loud, I actually get myself in front of a mirror fast, and I talk to myself. I have an honest conversation and explore what I'm feeling, and then I follow that same exercise my mom had me do. Understand, forgive, encourage, and love. I later found out that a Hawaiian forgiveness prayer called Ho'oponopono, which has, everybody's heard me talk about those, which has 4 very simple but deep lines. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. And thank you. And for me as that little girl, my blind spot was fear that I wasn't good enough as I was, and fear that I'd be rejected or abandoned. There have been many phases in my life where I had to check my blind spot and only saw what ego was reflecting back. And there were those times I wasn't standing in my true power and felt like life was not at my fullest potential. Now I make it a part of my lifestyle to check my blind spot and nourish the parts of me that need my acknowledgement, need my acceptance, and need my love. I have conversations with myself while looking into that mirror, into my eyes, and allow no shame to block or hide my light. So look into a mirror, check your blind spot, and simply start by saying, I love you, I accept you deeply and completely. I just have a little quote at the end here. It says, let the water settle, and you will see the moon and the stars mirrored in your own being, by Rumi. And thank you, everybody, so much for letting me share that with you, that chapter. I am so happy that I remember that. I didn't actually remember that I remember that story until months ago. I was really upset with myself, and that judgment was creeping in. And I, without even thinking, I marched myself up my stairs. I sat myself in front of the mirror, and I just sat there. And I didn't even have words. I just looked into the mirror, and I just had that memory of that event that happened. And I just started talking to myself with those love and acceptance. And really, though, that's the technique. We're going to go to commercial soon, but when we do come back, I'm going to be talking about the technique that we just said there about, loving and encouraging. Encouraging is so important. It's a tough one. And the forgiveness, the understanding, the going into the being the observer is actually what we're going to come to. And that's a really, really trick one. How the heck do we forgive? Especially as a child and without our mom standing in front of us and showing the love from her eyes. That's a tricky one. Forgiveness is tricky, and just saying it doesn't do the trick. So the techniques, and of course we're going to finish off the whole show with tapping. So you want to make sure you stay here for that because it's my favorite thing to do. And we're going to come back and just do the techniques.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
and just working our way through blind spots, basically. And, I was thinking about that, too. My dad was the one who taught me how to drive, and that's always to make sure you check all your blind spots. I mean, this is for safety and protection. And oftentimes, really, why we do self-sabotage ourselves. Oh, that sounded funny. Self-sabotage ourselves. I'm just throwing it right onto ourselves here. Is because we have fear, because we're scared. We don't feel safe. And there's something about what our next step is about to be that we're not comfortable with. And I'm back to that whole thing about the ego part and the self-esteem, the worthiness, the ability, the confidence, the respect. I want to share a little bit about the ego so that we have a good relationship with it. I love the ego. I think the ego is so, it's us, and we want to get to know ourselves just like the shelter pet, and really go there and say, okay, what's going on here? What is my language? What is my lifestyle? What are my actions? And I want to help everybody spot the ego. How do we spot the ego? Well, we allow the ego itself, we allow it to give us our identity, to define us. The ego causes emotional drama and always wanting from others and is never satisfied. But that's a good thing because it has these desires and I want this and I want to experience that. It's made of beliefs that we have been acquiring over a lifetime. That's actually a really neat thing. Let's think of that. Our ego is really our identity, and it's made of beliefs that we've acquired over a lifetime. And each person has many, and each one of us a different one. And as I've been learning, and really it's been highlighted to me, is that it can shift and can change so often and quickly based on our experiences. And that's where I'm coming back up to the successful track record. So if I all of a sudden started trying something and I really stunk at it and I kept failing over and over, my ego is going to be a little damaged. I'm going to think, gosh, why can't I do this? Like, what? I'm so stupid, or I'm not able to, or I'm not strong enough. So to go further with the ego is difficult to see because it hides behind opinions that appear true. And that attachment to the description of our identity really comes out in our language. So some things you might recognize, really listen to what you're saying, even maybe not out loud, but where are you limiting yourself because of what you think and what you believe? Whether it's nobody likes me, that somebody's better than you, or you're better than. I want to highlight too that sometimes we can have a heightened ego that kind of is like the other way. Not that we're hard on ourselves, but that we are really promoting ourselves to be something that we're not, and we're trying to squish others like we're better than somebody else. And really that's coming from we're just so, whether we're struggling with somebody else's inability to grasp or understand something that we understand, there's a judgment there, or that we're just so afraid of somebody seeing that we're not better than them, that we try to make up for these things. We make all these stories. In saying this, so I want to talk about this is a tough one, why we can be angry with other people. And this really does have a connection to ego, to self-sabotage, to all these things, because when we're angry at somebody else, we're really not taking that responsibility for what we have held somebody in expectation, something that wasn't their responsibility to fulfill in the first place. We made a truth in our minds and our hearts to say, I expect this of you, and you haven't done that, and now I'm angry about it. This is going somewhere to forgiveness, so just follow me along this path. When we have such anger, it's really, we can turn a little finger around and say, wow, I'm angry at myself for trusting in my expectation of this person. I think one of the biggest things that people have anger over and then they end up sabotaging themselves in is our relationships. Somebody's hurt you and you feel they've hurt you from so long ago, and you think you're so upset with that other person, but really there's such a hurt towards ourselves that we can't forgive ourselves for feeling, how could I be so stupid? Why did I stay? Why did I go back? How did I let them do that to me? How did this go so far? Maybe I'm not worthy. And so we hold on to anger. So anger is really quite a few steps before that forgiveness. And the neat thing that I found about forgiveness, because that's the whole Ho'oponopono thing, learning about that was really realizing and knowing, how the heck do I be an observer? How can I not have it? I used to get so upset with that. How can anybody just be an observer? How are they not having, an emotional response to this? And I want to share that that was one of the most helpful things I've ever done and that takes practice too, by the way, because I can catch myself many times going, oh, Lisa, you are not being an observer. So in being an observer, really having the non-attachment to an outcome. And that's a tricky one. I've been asked this many times. If we're, how do we set goals, and how do we visualize if we are not attached to the outcome? And really, when we want to be the observer, but we still want to have goals and we still want to be in control of our lives, it's about letting go of that precise timing and the precise way. And you don't know how you're going to forgive. Just like when my mother was looking at me, I didn't have a clue that the way through my understanding of myself and my worth and value was seeing how much she loved me. That was, would never have known that. So what does it mean to be an observer? So I want to share this thing with you. You postpone the moral judgment on any issue. That's a good one. That's a tricky one because remember we talked about in self-esteem under the ego, it's about respect, and that's pride, honor, and dignity. So when you postpone moral judgments on any issue, since you feel you may not have understood all there is to understand about the situation, judgments always have something definitive about them. And here's the trick. But the heart is not interested in definitions. That is so big when I think about that. The heart is not interested in definitions. It doesn't need titles. It doesn't need precising. Oh, I can't even say the precise meanings. It always tries to go beyond what seems definite and defined. The heart is open. The heart explores. It is ready to re-examine. And that's where the readiness to forgive comes from. It's very tricky to even go into forgiveness when we're so busy judging that act, what they did, what I did, what happened. And in the end, to really move beyond that is to become the observer. That's how we move into the heart. So when you use the ego-centered willpower, you can sense something pulling, in your stomach in that solar plexus chakra. It doesn't feel right. You just know that you're there in the ego. And using your will in this way is an energetic happening that you can be conscious of. Like you could say, I feel this way. But whenever you feel this pull, accompanied by strong desire to have things your way, you are trying to mold reality to your wishes. And that is attached to outcome. You don't want to be there. You're trying to force your beliefs upon reality. And when you act from your heart, you go along with the flow of things. You do have your goals, you do have your desire, but you go along with the flow of things as they present themselves. You are not pushing, you're not forcing. And if you work very hard to achieve something and you fail to reach your goals time after time, please ask yourself, what chakra am I working from? What energy center? Is this pulling on my stomach? But how can I tune into my heart? And so I want you to say, whenever you're feeling that, you're sabotaging and you're forcing, you're reliving things, stop and say, am I trying to force a reality that maybe isn't true? And move into the observer. Look around. What is going on? And often you try to realize certain goals without truly going within. Like you haven't checked in with your heart. And you can see that all the experiences that have happened to you that way, they're not really serving you. You want to be on your own inner path with your own wisdom and with your own creativity. And I was having a really interesting conversation this morning about being the creator and being the one who's experiencing. And it's awesome to do both. You want to do both. We have that in us. We want to create. And sometimes people want to create so many different things than somebody else. Some people want to be bakers and make cupcakes. And some people want to write songs. And some people want to create beautiful vacation trips and plans. And so there's so many different things we can create in our own way. And then there's a time in our lives where we just want to experience it. You don't want to create anything. You don't want to write anything. You want to do anything. But you just want to experience it. But I think it's so important to kind of have both sides of it in your life so that you can have that pride, have that successful track record of being the creator and then experiencing it. So as an observer, you can see what's going on and see how you react and go into your heart And I think this is the way that we'll have a more successful, beyond track record, but a successful life, because we're checking those blind spots and we're not sabotaging ourselves or others. And when we drop that ego and live from the heart, that was the biggest thing that helped me move into a more natural rhythm of things. And success is such a funny word. You know, we have sabotage and success, sabotage and success. And you're gonna bounce around between them all. And one of the other biggest things I think it really affects people from being successful or feeling successful and they continuously sabotage is that they separate. They separate themselves from others. There's a division. And when we separate and there's that division, that's weakness. Like you don't have that strength to support you. I mean, we need strength, we need support, whether it's just from ourselves even, but from others. And I love the word relationship, to relate to another. And how we can stop the sabotaging is to not separate, to not divide, to look around to see how we are all connected, how we are joined. And we start that with tenderness. And I love the word tenderness, tender words, tender meaning, because this really shows a gentleness, and it shows a concern, and it shows a sympathy. And with the word concern, I love the word. Like when people say, "I'm so concerned about you," I'm opening my heart to see what's going on in your heart, and together, because we're not together, we're not divided or separate, we're stronger, and we don't have that weakness. You can have somebody else kind of check in your blind spot, and you can check into theirs. A question I asked just before the commercial here, I want to ask this question of everybody to ask us, check in with themselves. What do you think is the opposite of love? You repeat that too. That's just like a good question. What's opposite of love? And a lot of people might say hate, but I'm going to leave you with hate has just as much passion and emotion behind it as love. And the opposite of love would be indifferent, a lack of concern, a lack of care, a lack of tenderness, a lack of compassion and sympathy. So when we come back, I'm going to run through some techniques, especially with my tapping, on how to go towards love, not the opposite of indifferent, but even start recognizing how we can love more.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Me, a cat, moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
As we come back from my commercial, again, I love the cats. I just want to thank everybody for really hanging in here for this show. This is talking about emotions and how to love ourselves, how to forgive ourselves. You know, I see it everywhere, of course, you know, the internet, on the Facebook, everywhere we see about this. And it is a tough one because in order to truly get there, it does require it to be, and I said this in the chapter, a lifestyle. And I love when we can commit to attending, a yoga class once a week or whatever that is, but very, maybe not sporadic, but just not every day. When we say something about a lifestyle and really getting to know yourself, it takes time, and it takes deep conversations, and it takes reaching out to others. And there's that action part that we talked about last week on the show. I want to go through some tapping. It's not the typical tapping that we've done. I'm not going to go through all the points. Now, EFT tapping, we tap on our points to do this. I want to just say these as almost like affirmations and tappings to go through. And then I'm going to close off with a few paragraphs from a chapter that one of a close friend of mine wrote in the book as well. But when we're talking about love, sabotage, respect, all those things, we really are checking in with the ego. And I want to start off with that quote that again at the show here is, you cannot create a more loving reality from self-hate. You cannot will yourself into a new reality by pushing unwanted parts aside. Willpower does not serve you here. What you need is to get in touch with your heart. We just spoke of that. The energies of understanding and acceptance are the true building blocks of a new and more fulfilling reality. Oh, I just love it. Building blocks. I guess these a little foundation being built and one block on the next block. When you interact with reality from the heart, you let reality be. You do not try to change it. You simply and carefully take note of what it is. And there's the observer. So I'm going to run through these little tapping with you. And I believe that these statements and these check-ins are going to help you just go deeper. So even though I've been identifying with my ego, wanting things and holding expectations of myself and others, I choose now to live from my heart. Even though I've been making decisions from my will and ego, I choose now to love and accept myself and see from my heart as the observer. I've identified with many hurtful names. Not good enough. I don't deserve happiness. I don't deserve abundance. I'm not meant to be happy, healthy, or a wealthy person. I should never have done that. I should never have made that choice. I knew better. I've been pushing myself. I am filled with resentment. How could they? How could I? I'm not good enough to be in control. How did I let them have control over me? I gave my power away. I'm angry. I'm hurt. They saw how weak I was. I'm so hurt. I'm so mad. I wish my life wasn't like this. What if I saw those terrible things as lessons for my growth? What if I stepped away from ego and stopped identifying with not being worthy? Could I, for one thought, maybe a whole day, believe I'm worthy, worth even just a bit more than I've been wanting to believe? What if I could feel a little bit of forgiveness towards myself for not supporting my light, not supporting my voice? What if I could speak my mind? Better yet, what if I could speak my heart to one person? I choose to be the observer of my life now. I choose to release judgment of others. I choose to release judgment of myself. I choose to speak my heart and love and accept that it supports my growth. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. So it was a little bit of you can tap along to that or just hear it and just say it and let it go through. And I love closing off with the Ho'oponopono there. There's just such depth to really accepting ourselves and just believing. And I love it. Could I for one thought? If you could just put your thought one way. I have a friend that struggles with she can't even say the word beautiful. It can't come out of her. She just doesn't, it hurts her almost because she is in so much pain from it. But we start with just, you know what, then don't say it out loud. Just for one thought. Be safe in your mind to think that one thought that maybe you are just worth that much. And with talking about worthiness and control of our own lives, and if I was just strong enough to make a decision, I want to share with you just a few paragraphs from the chapter. You have to read the whole book or the whole chapter if you want to hear, but Cherise Morris is just an absolutely beautiful writer. And I've chosen 3 or 4 paragraphs here I just have to share with you. And to give you a little bit of background, when she wrote this chapter, it was very difficult for her to share in public, and I'm just so proud of her. As I'm proud of everybody who can step out into a little bit of light, at least so that their own hearts can see them. But I'm going to just read this and see how everybody feels with this when I'm jumping into the middle of the chapter here. And she starts, "Eventually, like a snake, the rancor coiled around me. It slowly began squeezing the happiness out of me. My will, motivation, and most importantly, my light was all crushed. I was dying a slow and agonizing death in the vice-like grip of the job. Everything that made me unique was slipping away from me. My essence was being replaced with a morbid void, a gaping hole in the depth of my soul, and I was sliding downward into a spiral of turmoil and depression. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of myself." I chose that paragraph particularly because I think that's a big line there. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of myself. But she's talking about a job. Something this is so we can give our power away to so much. And I want to be able to finish this in time. So I'm jumping a little bit to some lighter moments here in the chapter. But spurred by my desire to provide the happiest home for my family, I began looking for answers. And that's all it takes, is just to begin looking for answers. Somehow I eventually figured it out. I finally understood that in order to be complete, I needed to nurture all the dreams of my soul, and that included fulfilling the need to have a career with purpose. Before I could find my true destiny, I needed to believe I was worthy of receiving it, not only as a mother and a wife, but worthy as an individual. And of course, that is such an empowering paragraph. And see, you guys are going to have to get this book to read all this. It says here this is Cherise Morris now again. "With the end of my last maternity leave looming, a familiar feeling began creeping back into my heart, dread. It was different this time. It wasn't all consuming. I had changed. I finally accepted that I had value as an individual. As soon as I acknowledged my self-worth, everything started falling into place. Like magic, opportunity started manifesting in my life. Amazingly, my outlook towards my job changed, and at long last I saw it for what it was, a source of income while I transitioned to a new career." I chose that paragraph to highlight that becoming, first of all, acknowledging her value, and then being the observer. That she literally, the same job that was strangling her and making her be afraid of herself, she literally changed her outlook. And all the pain, back to her book here, all the pain I've experienced has made me realize that I want to help heal people. I have started training as an energy healer, and my goal is to work with children. I may not know exactly where I'll end up yet, but I know I'm headed in the right direction, and it feels wonderful. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, I too will rise from the traumas of my past. And that is exactly it right there. I may not know exactly where I'll end up, but I know I'm heading in the right direction. And that all starts with just that one thought, that one acknowledgement. And I do want to share with you that her chapter is actually called Phoenix Rising. And I want to ask it. Now, not everybody's a writer, but everybody has thoughts and everybody has feelings and their stories. And one of the techniques I'd like to offer you to do, maybe you're just a talker like me, is to just randomly start letting it pour out of you some way, whether it's you're an artist, you want to draw something, a picture, even if it's stick people, maybe you want to talk to your dog or cat and tell them a story, let it come out of you, and start sharing with yourself. Share the stories with yourself about how you feel about things. Pick one event that happened to you that maybe is really emotionally charged or that is so blasé that you wonder, maybe I should explore the feelings that are going on in here. I also would really invite you to take a look at highlighting, witnessing, observing the areas that you really do feel shouldn't be the way they are. where you think you are sabotaging or that other people are sabotaging, because we really want to take that responsibility and look at our lives and what parts of our lives can we be the creator? What part of our lives do we want to be just experiencing it? Because that really is where the growth is coming from. And that's where you're going to witness, like what Charissa says, like magic, opportunities show up. And they're not just showing up. You're creating them. You're creating the space to allow them to come in. Because when we sabotage ourselves, we're saying basically to the world, nah, I don't have that confidence. I'm not worthy. I'm not able. There's no ability here for me to share. And I don't respect myself. And the one most loving, beautiful thing I do want to share as we close off here is find out where you are not respecting yourself, where you are not listening to yourself, where do you not get to know yourself, where do you feel that you've lost your dignity? Because if you go that deep and you really find out where you're hurting from, and you just observe and see, and then you can go move from that place and move into your heart to offer that forgiveness, even if it's one thought at a time. And if you have anything that you want to share with me, or you want to highlight, or just let somebody else know that you've had a success story, I would love to hear that. I would love for you to come to Light on Living. My Facebook page is there. I want to hear from you. And if you need help doing any of these, I would also love to support you in any way. So no more separation, no more division. Let's all relate, let's connect, and let's be tender with one another. Thank you so much.